Is Mongolia moving closer to the West?
Yes.
Over the course of 2023 and 2024, Mongolia has been the focus of growing attention in Washington and
Bro,
key
I just
European
love
capitals.
it. Like,
But while
love
many
it that it's like Macron there, right? And it's literally Genghis Khan behind him, you know? Like, there's like a fucking beautiful, like, not mural. What is it when they use the stones to make the picture?
This is the U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
see this as a concerted Western push to strengthen relations with this strategically important country. Can Mongolia really abandon its close ties to Russia and China?
Fucking the China show was talking about China expanding into Eastern Russia in the event that Russia collapses. Or like even not collapsing, just like if the opportunity is right, China just going in and taking like another part of Mongolia, like a different part of Mongolia that Russia has, and Eastern Russia, along with like Vladivostok and stuff, giving them a port outside of the South China Sea.
I mean, why not?
I mean, it's honestly a pretty good get if
they should fucking coalition Maoist with ISIS members and bring back that unified front they had in Afghanistan.
Hello and welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is James Kerr-Lindsay, and here I take an informed look at international relations, conflict, security, and statehood. In international relations, some countries emerge as a critical focal point of competition between regional or international powers. This can be due to many factors, such as their location, economic reach.
I don't think I've had a beer for 6 months.
I think the last time I drank was over 3 years ago.
There you go.
Sources or broader political or religious influence. Known as pivot states, the foreign policy decisions of these countries can often have profound effects.
Oh,
For example, by aligning with one neighbor against another, they can...
Crazy. Wow. We play politics in all regions and even influence Russia and China? No way. I had no idea.
Alter a regional balance of power. Alternatively, by remaining neutral, they can become a buffer or intermediary between competing states. Sometimes they might ally with an external actor, thus becoming a vital element of foreign power projection. Needless to say, all this can give pivot states a much greater significance than might otherwise be expected from their size, military strength, or economic standing. One of the most interesting examples of a pivot state in contemporary international relations is Mongolia. Over the past several years,
I love that he's the framing of a
little stoned. What of it?
I love the framing of a pivot state too. That's not a term that people throw around a lot.
No, it isn't. To be completely honest, I don't even think I've ever heard it used.
I don't think I've personally used it, but I have heard it in international relations shit.
Yeah, because I did it like an international relations degree. Then I'm like, everybody in this course is dumb and retarded, and I left.
Your cable.
But yeah, I was I did half a international relations degree, and I got to Australian politics and dropped out because Australian politics is that bad of a class that I just couldn't be bothered doing it again.
Influential target for many.
There's a lot of scholarly stuff specifically on the term. It's like the when we say nexus now, you know, like when we say, like I point this out whenever it comes up, that like when you hear the term nexus, what we mean by that, it's like now like an IR term.
Yes. Yeah, it's I mean, it still means the same thing.
Yeah, but people will just say that, like, for example, I'll even just say it when I'll say the nexus. And you know, it's just not something that, like,
I mean, what do we most commonly use? It's the crime nexus, right?
Well, it's the terror crime nexus. I just say the nexus.
Yeah, so nexus is actually a really good fucking word for that, because it's just a connection. It's just connecting the two things.
Yeah,
it's just putting lines between
the terror crime nexus is also
terrorism.
There's not just framing it as a nexus of terror and crime, it's also the theory of the singularity of combining terror and crime until it leads to a complete collapse.
Yeah.
Mongolia is located on the boundary between Central and East Asia. With an area of around 1.56 million square kilometers or 600,000 square miles, it's the world's 18th largest country. A landlocked state, it's bordered by Russia to the north and China to the south, east and west.
The one you just sent?
The one I just opened. This one is from 2017 to 2021. This one is from 2014. 2014 is the earliest time I've seen it. And then there is this book here called The Pivotal States, A New Framework for U.S. Policy in the Developing World. And then it argues foreign policy resources should be focused on Brazil, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Egypt, Algeria, Turkey, South America, and Mexico. First published in 1998. That's just pivotal states, though, you know. So that's probably some of the earliest pivotal states in U.S. strategy, 1996, Foreign Affairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a population of around 3.4 million, it's one of the most sparsely
How do you say that capital
in the world. An important
Ulaanbaatar. I think that's how you say it.
Source of coal, copper, gold, tin, and tungsten. Mining is a crucial part of the country's economy, amounting to around a quarter of its gross domestic product and 90% of its exports. While Mongolia has lost gross domestic.
Bro, there's a place called Moron. Hold on.
You know what that means?
That's where you belong.
That's literally about to. I was setting you up for.
While Mongolia has long been home to nomadic tribes and has a history stretching back over 2,000 years, the country is most famously associated with the Mongolian Empire that emerged in the 13th century. Having united various tribes, Genghis Khan began a campaign of conquest that would eventually lead to the creation of the largest contiguous land empire in human history. An empire that at its height reached from China to Europe. However, it would be short-lived. Amidst feuds, the empire soon fragmented, and by the end of the 14th century, the Mongols had been forced back to the steppes of Central Asia. In 1635,
this is so much,
China invaded South.
Compare this to fucking News Borat, where he wants to give the entire geography and history as well of something.
this would be go from a 14-minute video to a 55-minute video just because he needs to explain the geography of every place.
And eastern or inner Mongolia. Half a century later, it extended its control over the northern outer areas, which were coming under increasing threat from the expanding Russian Empire. All this was cemented in 1727 when a treaty between China and Russia placed Mongolia under Chinese control. This would last almost 200 years until in 1911 the ruling Qing dynasty was.
And I'm so glad he did a video on it because this is so undercovered. Like the Cold War politics between the Sino-Soviet split in Mongolia is super fucking interesting.
Yes.
Like I'm sure after this you'll be looking up more about it.
Out of Mongolia. Oh, is Out of Mongolia just Mongolia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Overthrown. In the political chaos that followed, Mongolian nationalists declared independence. But although Chinese forces regained control several years later, in 1921, Mongolian revolutionaries, backed by the newly created Soviet Union, forced them out again. 3 years later, in 1924, the Mongolian People's Republic was proclaimed. Despite playing a critical role in establishing Mongolia, the USSR initially refused to recognize the new state.
What?
The Mongolian People's Republic?
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Instead, it still formally saw it as part of China, which continued to lay claim to the territory. While this decision probably saved Mongolia from becoming yet another Soviet republic, the USSR steadily extended its control over Mongolia to the point that it eventually became a Soviet puppet state. This was highlighted in 1936 when the two countries signed a mutual assistance protocol leading to the deployment of Soviet troops in Mongolia. All this came to fruition in 1945. As the Second World War drew to a close, the Soviet Union finally recognized Mongolia's independence. More to the point, in line with the Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship and Alliance, the nationalist government in China also accepted its statehood. And even though the nationalists were defeated 3 years later by the forces of the Chinese Communist Party, the new
I'm beginning to smell a big fat commie rat.
On the 16th of October,
Do you see how
1949,
short Stalin
China
was in that picture?
He's always short. He's
I
the
know.
shortest king.
It's so funny.
Mongolia
I don't know.
established
King of
diplomatic
Jordan might be
relations.
shorter.
Hi, everybody.
Although
Actual
China had now
Nazi
accepted
here.
it, Mongolia
Stalin.
would remain closely tied to the Soviet Union, becoming one of Moscow's closest allies during the Cold War. This would in turn profoundly affect Mongolia's external relations over the following decades. While Mongolia initially maintained good relations with China, signing a border agreement in 1962, the Sino-Soviet split in the late 1950s and early 1960s saw a
there's the
collapse
man
in
right there. There's my guy.
Khrushchev.
Yeah, Mickey, bro. Anyway, it's this context is so important to set up like why it's so crazy that even Mongolia is shifting to the west at this point.
Especially after Soviet troops were again stationed in the country in 1966. It also became more closely linked with other Soviet satellite states. But while it would go on to join Comecon, the main economic body uniting socialist countries, it was denied the opportunity to join the Warsaw Pact, as many Eastern European countries felt worried about unnecessarily antagonizing China. In the meantime, all this also had significant.
You could also like
you hear
instead
that,
of
though?
like instead
they
of being
allowed
mad,
to join the Warsaw Pact because it might antagonize China.
Interesting.
You
So
know?
like instead of like antagonizing, like
It's just
not
like Ukraine.
antagonizing China, why don't we just like tell them to shut the fuck up and deal with it like everybody else in the world? Why do we treat them with such kid gloves? Oh, you want to be an irrational fuckwit about this? Okay. Everybody else is now in a fucking alliance
if we
against
tried
you.
to, if Ukraine tried to join NATO,
Mm.
that would be the most common dissent, though, is that they don't want to antagonize Russia.
Russia, yes.
But there's
again-
there's nothing exactly showing that the Chinese would consider it antagonization.
Yes.
Antagonization.
Yes. And this is why I'm saying that it's like, okay, well, you don't operate by this, but everybody else does. So why should we be treating them like with care when we should be treating them like an outsider until they want to be mature enough to join the rest of us?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a community. You know what I mean? Like that's what it should be. Ostracization with the potential of coming back and being like, you can come back, just don't be a fuckwit about it. Do your own thing. You can literally commit like silent genocide if you want. Just don't be fuckwits. That's literally America's rule. They will give you guns even to kill your own people as long as you don't fuck with their trade routes. That's it. Just don't plunder their trade routes and they won't fuck with you. It's very simple. You know, it's like playing Civ. You fuck with my trade route, I destroy your civilization. It's very simple.
You gotta get it to
internal
PC
effect.
because that game is streamable.
Under the rule of
Eventually,
the
it'll be on
People's
sale for
Revolutionary
like
Party,
$1. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
ERP, the USSR's influence steadily grew across all
I
sectors.
know I got it for super cheap.
I think it would be better on the PC too.
No, you should not play it on console, honestly.
Mm.
But yeah, I want to say like I got it really cheap at a sale.
Yeah. Actually, Steam's got a sale at the moment. I'll check.
At the same time, Russian became widely spoken, and many Mongolians studied in the Soviet Union. After almost 70 years of Soviet control, everything changed in the late 1980s, as reform took off in the USSR, eventually leading to its collapse.
It's
Pressure
$5.
also
It's $5
For the whole game or just the original?
for the whole game.
All of it. All the
Oh,
expansions.
sorry, for the original. So all of them is $35.
I
can
want
get
to
the
say I paid
Platinum
less.
edition for $20. I don't know if that's the same thing. Either way, I'm not paying $40, but I also don't have $5.
Because like on console, you don't have the weather mod, right?
Where it like floods and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, okay. So it's like. I thought that was in like the most recent like expansion for it.
Well, I was hoping that because I purchased it on the Xbox, I would be able to purchase it for free and just download it on the PC. But that's not the case. What I could try and do.
It's 95% off.
Yeah. Oh well, let's finish.
Gathering Storm. That's the one with weather where it has the volcanoes and shit. You got volcanoes? So you must have you must have Rise and Fall. Too. So you have the full thing on console.
I think I have the Platinum Edition.
Protest, multi-party democracy was introduced in 1990. 2 years later, the communist system was abandoned, a new constitution was adopted, and the Mongolian People's Republic was dissolved. As with other former Soviet satellite states, the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the USSR profoundly affected Mongolia and its foreign policy. For a start, the loss of its benefactor and the collapse in trade led to a massive economic downturn and financial crisis. Moreover, relations with the new Russian Federation soured after Moscow halted its technical assistance and demanded that Mongolia repay all the aid money it had been given since 1946. As a result, Mongolia was now forced to begin building new ties. Having finally established diplomatic relations with the United States in 1987, Washington became a key target. So did the European Union, leading to a partnership and cooperation agreement in 1993. Meanwhile, other key relationships were established, including with Japan and South Korea. However, by far the most important transformation was with China. Despite their tense history and notwithstanding a lingering sense of mistrust, relations rapidly improved. In 1994, they signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation. This soon led to a massive expansion of trade and investment, especially in the hugely important mining sector. Indeed, within a decade, China had become Mongolia's most important economic partner. By the turn of the millennium, the situation had stabilized. Despite occasional tensions in Chinese Inner Mongolia, relations between China and Mongolia went from strength to strength. Meanwhile, political and strategic ties to Russia also improved dramatically. Unlike the former satellite states of Central and Eastern Europe that abandoned Moscow to pursue closer ties to the West, many Mongolians continue to view Russia extremely positively and still considered their former patron as a natural partner. Having settled the debt issue in 2004, over the next decade...
I just double-checked. So it gives me Nubia Civilization, Indonesia, and the expansion bundle, whatever that is.
Decade and a half, the countries steadily strengthened their political, economic, and military cooperation. This peaked in 2019 when they signed a treaty of friendship and a comprehensive strategic partnership. But while Mongolia recognized the need for close working relations with its two immediate neighbors, fears also grew that it was becoming overly reliant on them.
So it also has Rise and Fall and Gathering Storm expansions.
This was felt particularly strongly with China. In addition to Beijing's rapidly expanding global influence, many felt that Chinese firms were gaining too much control over critical sectors, including mining. As a result, Mongolia began to strengthen what it called its third neighbor policy. While good relations with Russia and China remained central to its external outlook, it steadily deepened its ties with many other countries, including key Western states, as well as building wide-ranging cooperation with the United States, which also resulted in a strategic partnership in 2019. It extended its relationship with the EU, as well as other partners, including Japan, India, and Turkey. While Mongolia now appeared to have settled into a relatively comfortable position with Russia, China, and its so-called third neighbors, all this changed in early 2022 with the start of the Ukraine war. At first, Mongolia adopted a cautious approach to the conflict. Fearful of undermining its relations with Moscow and worried about the implications of imposing sanctions, especially as it still relied on Russian energy, Mongolian policymakers initially steered a neutral course. For example, it abstained from key UN votes condemning the invasion. But while Mongolia continued and continues to have close links to Moscow with regular bilateral
Look
meetings,
at that
as the
ghoul.
war continued, some small but noticeable changes emerged.
Is that Lavrov?
Yeah, he just looks like
example,
he literally
speaking of the
looks
General
like the first zombie in Night of the Living Dead.
Assembly in late 2022, the country's president issued a call for peace that many saw as the start of a subtle shift in Mongolia's approach. However, the most significant development has been the steady increase in contacts with Western countries since the start of 2023. In addition to ongoing high-level contacts with the United States, many European countries have also taken a growing
I love
interest
the
in
third
Mongolia.
neighbor
In
is
May
what they call it.
2023, Emmanuel Macron became the first ever French president to visit the country. A visit French officials explicitly said was aimed at loosening Russia's control over its neighbours and opening strategic alternatives. Following
Explicitly
on from
said.
this, in February 2024, Germany became the first EU member to sign a strategic partnership with Mongolia. Most recently, the British Foreign Secretary visited the country in April 2024, a trip that...
There's nothing there.
Swastikas!
There's nothing there. What do they want?
Mines. They just said
That's
that
it?
the mines are,
It's just
also,
mines. That's
It's also between China and Russia.
yeah. It's a perfect place to get your shit fucked up.
Swastika.
also laid the foundations for its own future partnership agreement with the country. The reasons for all this are unclear. Some have put it down to economic factors. The war in Ukraine has had a disastrous effect on the Mongolian economy, but some have suggested that it may reflect deeper splits within the country. While older Mongolians remain generally positive towards Russia, many younger ones take a more international outlook, often voicing a preference for the West over Russia and China and expressing support for Ukraine. On top of all this, there may well be growing nervousness about the increasingly close ties between Beijing and Moscow that have emerged since the start of the Ukraine war. It's one thing to pivot between two powerful neighbours, but an entirely different thing to be squeezed between them.
Look at those knockers.
All this also benefits the United States, the EU, and other Western
Isn't that
states.
crazy?
Besides the chance to weaken one of Moscow's closest historical partnerships, they're also keen to gain greater access to Mongolia's valuable mining sector, a point that they openly highlight in many of their statements about the closer relationship. So, does all this...
The clown aesthetic hides them very well.
The video, of course it knocks?
No.
That I've shown you? Okay, hang on, let me find it.
Maybe?
Of course, to say, of course it honks.
Maybe. This is weird.
I'm so...
Hang on.
Let's say that it does honk.
Okay, this is the one right here. Pull this up.
What are you going to do about
Pull this up on stream. This is such a funny video.
All right, we'll end on this one because this video is done.
What are you going to do about that?
You gotta refresh. You gotta get it from the beginning. Fucking Instagram.
What are you going to do about that? You live with your parents.
We'll just have to wait for the loop.
Do you have a soundproof room? Or a soundproof basement? Let's say that it does.
Why'd you pause it right when the loop happened?
Got it.
No, because they didn't hear it.
What are you going to do about that? You live with your parents.
It literally got it the first time.
Yeah, you didn't though. So, let's say that it does honk. Like, you get the joke?
No.
She's talking about that, like, when you fuck her, it honks. So, like, you have sex with a clown and it's making honk noises.
Right.
So she says, do you have a soundproof room? You live with your parents. Let's say that it does honk.
I didn't even make the connection because I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm so desensitized to women posting tits online at this point. I'm just like, whatever.
No, she's cool as fuck. Her YouTube channel is like not like that at all. It's just like literal like slideshows on the history of clowns and stuff.
That's genuinely funny. All right, I do have to go. So we will call it there.
Do it, honk.
We don't have a honk.
That's what I'll write on our videos. Oh, there's a comment.
Do it, honk.
Do it, honk.
doofus.
And then people will reply, of course it honks.
That's not a proper piece of editing. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?